Welcome back to the Change Book Podcast. I am so excited today to be here with a special guest, a co-author, and also a colleague of all of ours. And so Deana Mitchel, she is the president of Genius Insanity. So go ahead and share with us who you are. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how we got here today.
Sure. Well, I grew up in Louisiana and I started my first business at age 14 and have had a long journey of several businesses, failures and successes, and also a 15-year corporate career in the hotel world. And so that's kind of a little bit about me. I live in Colorado now. I've been here for almost 25 years. So yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow. So you started your first business at 14 years old, and you've had several businesses. Tell us a little bit about that. So you've always kind of been an entrepreneur. You've always had that mindset, or tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. My mom started a nursery school when I was a year old because she didn't want to leave me with someone else. And so I grew up with my mom owning her business. And then later in my life, my dad has owned several businesses. And so I kind of grew up in the family of entrepreneurs. And my first business was a snow cone stand in front of my mom's nursery school. So my dad built the whole thing for me and helped me set it all up. And he said, if you need something, you better order it. And if you don't want to work, you better train somebody. And so that was my first business experience. And I had it for all the summers throughout high school. That was my job. And so then after that, my next business was in my late 20s, which was a failure. And then after that, I owned an event company for 10 years prior to COVID, which was extremely successful until the pandemic hit. And we closed the doors, unfortunately. And so since then, I've started a nonprofit, and I've also started Genius Insanity.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about because we all see people and where they're at, but we sometimes miss the road and the path that took them there. And so, you share that you started at the age of 20, a business that failed, and then you had the event business, and then COVID kind of shut that down. And so share with us, like the business, start off with the business when you were 20. What were some of those failures? And I always like to say failure is never failure. Failure is feedback for what worked, what didn't work, and what can I do differently to make it work. So if you could share just a little bit about, that, what were some of those struggles and what were some of those things that you went through when you were 20, and how did you use those to get to where you're at now?
Yeah. It was my late 20s, and I had been in the restaurant industry for quite a while at that point, managing restaurants and training and teaching people hospitality stuff. So I'd always been kind of a trainer and all this. And so back then I had a bad breakup, and it was somebody in the industry, and I wanted to do something completely different. And so I answered an ad. I was in San Diego, California, and I answered an ad for this company that did franchises. And I'm not going to talk a lot about who they are because they don't want to say anything negative. But it wasn't the best experience. It wasn't a situation where they really set you up for success. And so what I did was I went back home to Louisiana, to New Orleans, and started this franchise. And it just wasn't, there was a lot of things that they were not upfront with me about. And so I tried to make it work, but it just wasn't, it didn't coincide with who I was as a person. And it didn't coincide with being successful because I didn't have the right tools and information from the beginning. And I think, I'm sure that I played a part in the failure of that, but it was just a very difficult thing. And so I finally just decided that I needed to get a job. And I almost went to work for Club Med because they brought me to the islands for a 10-day interview work experience and offered me a job. But it was back then, I was just getting out of college and I had student loans and they just didn't pay that much. I was all in for the experience of travel and work, but they just didn't pay enough. So I ended up getting a job, and I was a banquet manager after that in New Orleans.
Yeah. So definitely what did you learn in that to move you into where you're at now? What would you say you learned from that?
I would say I learned to trust my gut from the beginning and not necessarily believe everything people tell me. And it's funny because I got a message in LinkedIn recently, and it was a lady who was pitching franchises to me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I've owned several businesses on my own that have been successful. And I've had one that was a massive failure, which was a franchise. And so I was like, I'm good. I don't really want to go that route again. I'm not saying that it's not a good thing for anybody. It's just the specific one I had an experience with wasn't truthful in the beginning about some things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I've looked into buying a Chick-fil-A franchise not too long ago, like years ago when I had my event business. Mm-hmm. Because I think they have such a great business model and they're very successful. And they will not let you own a Chick-fil-A franchise if you have another business.
Oh, really? Interesting.
And I think that's part of why they're successful. It's because they want people that are invested in the company and invested in what they're doing.
That's true. That makes sense. That's probably a good business model. And so, during COVID, when you had your event company, and share a little bit about that. Like, what was the pivot that you had to make when all of that happened?
Yeah. So March 10th, 11th, and 12th of that year, I was in Boston at a board meeting with people from about 15 to 20 countries for the sales global network I was a part of during that time. And we were sitting in that room when everyone got alerts on their phone saying they were canceling flights to certain countries. And there were people in the room that lived in those countries. And so they didn't know how they were going to get home. Like it was a massive situation. And so I got home like at midnight on March 12th. I flew into Denver and I woke up the next morning to everything being closed, or they're announcing everything's closed. So I went to the grocery store and it was very chaotic. And I was just angry at the whole thing because in the next 48 hours, we had 6 European groups arriving to Denver from a huge pharmaceutical company. And everything was planned. Everything was paid for. All the staff was in place, transportation, everything. We had bought out restaurants for them, all kinds of things. And so, they literally gave us 24 hours notice that they weren't coming at all. And I knew that was coming, but they weren't making a decision. And so it was a very tense week of like, how do we deal with this? And then the restaurants were, we were trying to contact them and they were in a panic as well because they were being shut down. And so it was just a really hard time. And it took us weeks to figure out all the legal stuff around everything because of all the uncertainty in every way, shape, and form. And so, it was months later that I decided to close the doors. But for about 4 days after that, I laid off my whole team, which was the worst day of my life. So anyway, I'm grateful for the experience. I'm grateful for the people and the clients and the staff we had for those 10 years. It was an amazing company, and we did some really cool events and worked with some great people. So it's definitely something I cherish. And now I'm really excited about what I'm doing now. And I think it's really my purpose. And I went through all of that to get here.
Yeah. It's crazy how that happens, right? Like we don't see it until like we really look back at all the different chain of events, all the moments and the dots, and we start connecting the dots, and then we're like, oh wow, like that really was not fun to go through. That was really hard to go through. But on the other side of it, to be able to see that, wow, like these are the reasons that I went through all of that, so I could be here right now. And so share a little bit about the birth of your company, Genius Insanity. Share a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, I'll start by saying in 2018, I lost a friend and colleague to suicide. And it was like God was knocking me upside the head saying, you need to speak up, because I had survived an attempt in my late 20s and I never ever spoke about it. And so when my friend died, it really changed everything for me, because I didn't know if he had known my story, would it have mattered? And that sentence keeps me going with what I'm doing now. And so we started the Realize Foundation, and it was in brainstorming stage before COVID, and it looked very different. But now it is a nonprofit, 501c3, that we publish books with people's stories, and we do virtual events and have a community. And so it's been a really great thing. And so because I was working on that, I started Genius and Sanity in 2020, because my thought was entrepreneurs don't take care of themselves. They push themselves, they're driven, they're successful, but they're not taking care of their physical and mental health. And I was one of those people. And because actually in the same year that I lost my friend, I had to have surgery. And people always ask me, well, what was it? What was it? So I had a hysterectomy, and I had endometriosis pretty bad. And so when I agreed to with my doctor that I would have the surgery, he said, it'll be 2 to 6 weeks. You'll be out. And I was like, I'm giving you 2 weeks because I don't have 6. And so I ended up being in bed for 2 months.
Oh my gosh.
And it was just such a more invasive surgery than they predicted. And so during that time, like it really taught me the value of me time or personal freedom while owning and growing a business. And my team was amazing. They took care of everything. The clients were happy. Everything was fine. I always worry about everything. And so after that experience, I lost 45 pounds. I started going to the gym regularly. I was eating better. I was taking better care of myself. I was still working a lot and traveling a lot, but I definitely had more balance in my life. And so I started Genius and Sanity because there is a balance between the two. And there is a way that all of us can achieve that balance. And so I wrote a book last year called The Shower Genius, which is all about how self-care can change our life personally and professionally. And self-care can be as easy as, hey, I'm going to go to lunch by myself and read a book, or it can be meditation. I mean, it can be such a wide range of things. And it's all up to the individual to decide what is important to them. But it's a 12-step framework that really takes people through this process of going from I'm exhausted, I'm fed up, I'm like, I just can't think straight. I don't know what solutions I need right now. And when you go through this process and you do give your brain the room that it needs to be creative and to get rid of the brain fog, you can be so much more productive in less time, which means you can spend less hours working in your business.
And everybody wants that, right? So it's that slowing down so that you can speed up.
Yes.
So, yeah. And it's funny that you just say that, because today I was reading and doing some journaling, and that's something that, like, because we're like, go, 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 go. And especially entrepreneurs, like, go, 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 keep going and do this and do that. And, take action and all these things. And I really felt like this, like, you need to just sit and wait. Waiting is still an action. Waiting is still an action in that. And so that's so interesting that you say that today, of what you just said, and that sometimes we just have to sit and wait in that action of waiting and taking care of ourselves. And like you just said, that mental clarity and everything. I'm excited to get your book and read the framework of all of that. And so what, Shower Genius, right?
Yes. I know people are like, what the heck is a shower genius? And I was like, well, it's because when I finally wasn't traveling all the time, I would take a shower and I didn't have to be somewhere right away. And so I would have soap in my hair and I'd have all these wonderful ideas about this new business or about, the foundation that I was working on. And I would have this whole brainstorming session with myself. And then I'd get to my desk and I couldn't remember any of it. And so I put a whiteboard in my bathroom in, 2021. And that changed everything, because I could make notes and then get back to my desk and then, brainstorm further or whatever. But one of my favorite chapters of the book is called Become MIA. And what I mean by that is missing intentionally alone. And that could be for an hour for a spa appointment, or it could be a weekend at an Airbnb where you're writing or journaling or coming up with creative solutions for your business or personal life or whatever it is that you need to focus on. So that's one of my favorite concepts that came to me in the shower. And
that's awesome.
In the book. Yeah.
That's awesome. It's funny how that does happen. Like, I hear that so many times, like, you're in the shower and you can't do anything else. And so all you can do is think, right? And so, yeah, that's where a lot of creative ideas come.
Absolutely.
Series, chapter or book 19. So excited to be in that. I'm excited for it to be launched out. What made you decide to be a part of the series?
Well, it's kind of funny how this happened, but I think a week or two before they reached out to me, I had been watching a virtual event with Les Brown. I was on it live, and he had all these speakers, and the name of the event was You Are Not Alone, which is something I say in my nonprofit, like a robot. Like, I say that all over and over and over. And so I was like, well, I need to see what this event is about. So I went to the event, and it was 2 days, I think, or maybe 3. And he had all these speakers about mental health, and it was just really awesome. And it was probably 2 weeks later that someone reached out to me about the Change book. And I was like, I completely see the value in this book series and what the mission around it is. And it really goes hand in hand with what I'm trying to do with my business and my nonprofit. So it just was a no-brainer to me that, I wanted to be involved.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love that. And you know what? It's so funny because Les Brown, it's funny that Les Brown is the forward of the cover, because for me also, like Les Brown, there's a whole story behind that. I'll save that. But like, so when I was approached and I heard, the people involved and Les Brown was the forward, I was like, this is definitely like, this is like, oh my gosh, this is confirmation. This is like, all these things were going through my head. And so, where do you see all of this going now that you're in the Change series? You have such a great collective of people that you can, collaborate with. And, where do you see all this going with your business and the book and just everything?
Well, I'm hoping that we can do a group book signing. That's my newest idea. And
Cruz.
I'm sorry.
Hello.
Yeah. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Sorry. I heard you say something, but I didn't understand what it was. I think that the book is an integral part of my credibility. Like, I think I have a lot of credibility if you look at my career and my entrepreneurship. But, collaborating with people is the best way to lift people up in both directions. And to, just help each other out, because even when I had my event company, I worked with so many other businesses to implement what we were doing. And it created this kind of mini mastermind in just the people I was working with and how we would call each other for help or call each other for advice. And that kind of atmosphere really resonates with me. And I said earlier, I've always loved to train and mentor people. And I've had a lot of people that have come to me for advice. Like, I want to be an event planner. I want to get in that field, or I want to grow my business. And so that's part of what I loved about what I did. And so the more we can collaborate and the more we can share advice and experiences, the better we all can be.
Yeah, that's what I love too. I see that too going forward, is just all the collaboration, all, like you said, the mastermind, just like when we all are coming from different perspective and different businesses and different value, like we all have different knowledge. And when you just get all these people that are really, they're dreamers and doers, and they want to improve, other people's lives and help people and impact, then, when we just all collaborate together, like that's just the something beautiful is going to definitely come from that. So, I'm so excited to get the book. I'm so excited to read your story. And it's been a pleasure getting to know you. And this is our second time, I believe, now that we've gotten to connect. And so I'm sure that anybody that's listening today is definitely going to be very inspired by what you shared. And, do you have any lasting closing thoughts that you would like to share with the audience?
Absolutely. I think that, the end goal for this is to have a mastermind and have in-person retreats all over the world using my event experience. But right now, the book, you can find the book and our digital course on our website. But I think that the lasting words that people should take away is that you have permission to put yourself first. And you should. It's important. It's really important for us to take care of ourselves. And now that I'm in my 50s, I understand it more than ever. When I was in my 30s and 40s and working 24/7, I didn't think twice about it. But as you get older, you really reflect on what's most important in your life and what you've missed out on with your friends and family because you were working. And so I just think, we need to be okay with putting ourselves first, at least sometimes.
Yeah, that's a very good piece of information, a nugget of information. Give yourself permission to put yourself first. And I think, in society, we've been told that if you put yourself first, you're being selfish. And
Mhm.
I think we're definitely starting to see a shift in that it's not selfish. It's actually selfish to not put yourself first. Because if we're not pouring into ourselves and we're not taking care of ourselves, we really can't take care of anybody else efficiently.
Mhm.
And so that means we're short fused. That means we might be sick. That means a lot of things. And
Yeah.
so I love that. That's such a good piece of information, especially for entrepreneurs that are, lighting both ends of the candle.
Mhm. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time and your knowledge and inspiration. And I'm excited to see what happens next. And I thank you again. So, all right, everybody, we'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.
Thank you.